Hello, everyone. My name is Dominic. This is the Unfinished Shelf, and today I'm going to be talking about my top five books of 2025. I'm not going to go through these in any particular order. I'm actually going to start with This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal, El-Mohtar, and Max Gladstone. Hopefully, I'm not mispronouncing any of those names. This is about two characters, Red and Blue, who fall in love even though they are on opposite sides of a war that takes place across time and space. This is How You Lose a Time War comes in at about 198 pages, so there's really no reason not to pick this up. The story is actually delivered in a very interesting manner. Instead of it just being a regular narrative with different points of view, you instead get letters sent between each character. The prose is beautiful. It's very flowery, so if you're not into flowery prose, it might be a little difficult to get through, but I definitely think you should give it a chance. I struggled with the prose at first. Once you get through it, there's this gorgeous story underneath. Some of my favorite moments come from how the characters refer to each other. A couple standout ones are when Red refers to Blue as Blue Dabba-Dee, and if you know, you know. Another time, Red refers to Blue as My Dearest 0000FF, which I believe is the hex code for bright blue. So the authors are just really creative with how they go about referring to the characters. If you're looking for a beautiful love story, if you're looking for something short, some nice science fiction elements, definitely check out This Is How You Lose the Time War. The next book I want to talk about is Anxious People by Fredrik Backman. Anxious People is the story of a failed bank robber who accidentally holds a group of unfortunate people hostage during an apartment viewing. It sounds like the beginning of a bad joke, but it was actually a really fun read. Um, Not only is it hilarious at times, but it's also extremely heartwarming. And it had a lot of really great moments that I think are going to stick with me for a while. Frederick Bachman just kind of has a way of digging into what makes us human and what keeps us going in life. I think that it's probably one of my favorite Frederick Bachman stories, other than A Man Called Ove. With Anxious People, there was a little bit of a mystery about the bank robber and their place in this whole debacle. You kind of follow the characters as they're being interviewed by the police after the fact. I had a lot of fun with this one. I think that if you're looking for something heartfelt, something that might make you laugh, something that might make you cry, definitely check out Anxious People by Frederick Bachman. Up next, we have The Emperor's Soul by Brandon Sanderson. The Emperor's Soul is about a young woman named Shai who is a forger, which essentially means she has the ability to rewrite the history of an object. She can kind of take one object and make it look like another by rewriting its past. This story is filled with beautiful depictions of art and deep characters and amazing world building, and it's all crammed into a small novella. How Brandon Sanderson managed that, I do not know. I believe this is a Hugo Award winning novella. It shows as to why. The story is rich, it's deep, it's fun and fast paced. Chai is given a time limit of 100 days to rewrite the soul of the near dead emperor. And you kind of follow her as she goes through this process over the course of 100 days. There's not a ton to say about it without spoiling stuff, but this is within the Cosmere universe, so if you haven't read any of the other Cosmere books, this might be a great place to start. It's a fantastic book. I read it immediately after reading Elantris, and I recommend it to everybody. It's a fantastic fantasy novella. Next is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book is a historical fiction where we follow movie star Evelyn Hugo in her rise to stardom. The story is framed as an interview between Evelyn and an unknown journalist named Monique Grant, who has some interesting ties to the story later on. In this book, we see the price of fame, forbidden love, and everything in between. Along the way, we see everything Evelyn went through in her long career, along with her 7 marriages. I thought this was a really interesting book. I don't usually read historical fiction, but I really enjoyed this one. This was a buddy read that I did with some friends from work and my wife. And even though I didn't personally connect with any of the characters, it was an engrossing story. I just kept wanting to find out what happened next. I will warn you that this book does have some trigger warnings, such as abuse. that is something to keep an eye out. But if you can get through that, this is a really amazing story about stardom and fame and what people will go through just to be seen. One of the great things about reading historical fiction is that you don't have to get yourself immersed in a world since it takes place in our world. So you can really just focus on the characters. And I think the author did a really great job of writing this character piece because that's really what it is at its core. You really get to know Evelyn and Monique along the journey, and you find out how the two women are connected in a really juicy plot. I had a really great time uncovering everything, and the ending had me blown away. So, yes, I do think that I'm going to have to check out more historical fictions and more from this author. Lastly, we have the last book that I read in 2025, which is A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher. I could not put this book down. It's not my favorite T. Kingfisher, but the fact that I zoomed through it just shows how great of a writer she is. It follows a couple different perspectives, but primarily focuses on a young girl named Cordelia as she deals with her mother, who happens to be a sorceress. Her mother is attempting to marry a duke, I believe, and she'll stop at nothing to make sure she gets what she wants. I've used this word before, but this book is incredibly compelling. T. Kingfisher does a great job of making you really, really hate her mother. And I think when an author can make you hate a character that much, that's a sign of a good book. Cordelia isn't a character that I particularly relate to, but I don't feel like I have to relate to a character in order to really enjoy reading the story. And that's really what it comes down to with this book. The story, the plot, kind of kept me on the edge of my seat. It made me hate some characters, it made me love others. There are some funny moments. T. Kingfisher has a way of injecting humor into her stories, whether it's horror or fantasy, and this book is no different. And that's it for my top books of 2025. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know what your top books were in the comments. Peace out.